Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
This is my boomstick.
Here's Johnny.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
Righteous! Righteous! Yeah!
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Good morning, Vietnam!
Houston, we have a problem.
The first rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club.
All right.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Those Film Nerds podcast. The voice you're hearing is of Will Spalding, as always, as I am the host. And as always, the voice, the subtle laughs in the background, is, as always, Sam Dierberger. Sam, what's going on? What's happening?
That is an excellent intro this week. He thought about that all week.
I was There's a script in front of me, don't worry.
Okay. Yeah. Our screenwriters got creative this week, and you know, because we don't make up this content. We don't.
I don't even watch the movies.
This is teleprompted. This is completely teleprompted.
I don't even watch them. So this is all in Those Film Nerds creative team. We're just the beautiful voices in front of the mic.
We're just the fronts, the pawns, if you will.
It's really a pyramid system if you really think about it.
It's a lie. These are not our honest, authentic thoughts.
They're not. But well, that's not the case at all. We have no money, and this is completely all of us. But Sam, let's what do we got going on this week? I know you just mentioned you do want to discuss something.
I do want to discuss something, and we'll get to that first. But then after that, we're going to talk about Rebecca.
Sweet. I'd like to never forget it.
Come to Monday. I'm asking you a very beautiful. Mrs. De Winter, may I present Mrs. Danvers?
Welcome to Manderley.
Rebecca.
Welcome to
Becky.
Manderley. So we will talk about Rebecca in just a short while.
Yep.
But Sam, before that, you said off the air that you wanted to talk about a little trailer that dropped. This week.
Yes. So some of you might know that one of our most anticipated films of the year, which is set to come out in select theaters in November and on Netflix on December 4th, so we're getting pretty close, is Mank, directed by David Fincher. And the trailer just dropped earlier this week, October 21st. And first of all, this trailer is just incredibly well made. I was just kind of blown away by the aesthetic and the style. And it kind of gives the appearance of a 1940s film. Like, the film is shot very much like a Casablanca or a Citizen Kane, because of course this movie is about the screenwriter of Citizen Kane. But yeah, Gary Oldman in the starring role looks fantastic as always, just inhabiting the character.
Yes. I mean, he's a chameleon, really.
He is. So yeah, that's just something I wanted to mention because I'm suddenly very excited for this movie. I was excited before, but now I'm absolutely thrilled. I guess.
Yeah, and you say this how stunning it looks, and it really does. And I think, obviously, like, the shots look fantastic. Looks like Oldman's really doing a lot as he looks ill but still trying to do his work. And yeah, he looks incredible. The camera work looks fantastic, and I love that it's in black and white. But I think something that is really kind of lost in today is like the art of making a trailer, and this trailer is fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah. As I'm watching it right now, but because not all like, yes, you can have a great movie and a bad trailer. That is a thing. This looks like a great trailer, and I mean, there's no reason not to be excited about this movie. I mean, it's David Fincher. We know
Exactly.
Fincher. We know he's consistently excellent, and even when he has a bad movie, he's gonna make it passable.
Mm.
And I don't think this is going to be a bad movie, so it's going to be fantastic. So,
And I'm just reading now in the comments that this film, speaking of the aesthetic, obviously, several people have corroborated this. So this is in YouTube comments, but I don't know. I believe it to be true. This movie was literally shot in black and white, as in they only used cameras that could only shoot in black and white.
no filters. Interesting.
No filters whatsoever.
That is very interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that just shows you the lengths that Fincher will go to make something authentic.
Yeah, seriously. And I wanted to mention that because, like, this is an odd project for Fincher.
I
think.
It's not Seven Fincher. It's not Fight Club Fincher. It's not Girl with the Dragon Tattoo Fincher. This is something he has not done before.
Yeah. It's got a Fincher tinge to it, like based on the trailer. There's like a sense of urgency. There's a sense of like mystery and noir to the trailer that's obviously detectable, but at the same time, this is like a period piece. And it's not, the modern slasher kind of film that we were used to seeing Fincher getting into. So,
yeah, which is definitely interesting, and I'll be curious to see how he approaches it and how he executes what he's doing, because realistically, the thing that's most similar to this of what he has done is The Social Network, I suppose, and it's not anything alike. So,
right.
This will be something that if Fincher pulls off, then he should be considered one of the greats, because that just shows how versatile he can be, where he is not sticking to what he's good at. He's branching out, and he's trying to find a separate thing than his niche that he normally does.
Exactly. So yes, we are very excited for Mank. And we'll of course be doing an episode on that sometime in December, presumably.
Yeah, I'm looking at the release date now. Let me just see real quick.
I'm seeing December 4th.
November 13th. I don't know. I don't think Netflix.
I saw November 13th for like a limited theater release.
Oh, okay. That must be it.
So
it must be December something on Netflix then.
Yeah, but man, this would be cool to see in a theater.
It's kind of tracking back to last week. When we were watching Trial of Chicago 7, I was like, I would have loved to have seen that in the theater.
Oh yeah, seriously.
It's gonna be the same thing for Mank. I'm gonna be like, man, I wish I could see that in the theater, but we've had that conversation before, so maybe let's not enter that.
Unfortunately, we are. It is what it is. It is what it is.
Exactly.
So yeah, with that, then the other piece of news I wanted to briefly touch on, I just came across this, is Michael B. Jordan reportedly set to star and direct Creed 3.
Oh, directing.
Now, I believe Michael B. Jordan has never directed a feature film before. I believe.
Let me just look real quick. I don't think he has. It does not look like it, no. But
yeah,
Creed
directorial debut.
His first deal. Here we go. I mean,
This is exciting.
Love the Rocky franchise.
I do.
And you heavily enjoy the Creed. Am I correct?
I think both the Creed movies are really good, actually.
Yes.
Because, okay, first of all, what I love about the Rocky franchise is that you have a guy like Sylvester Stallone who has no real acting ability, like, honestly.
No, he does not.
and he has no writing ability, like real writing ability, and really he has no directorial ability, but still he was able to make like 6 movies out of it. And they're not most of them are not even close to great movies. Some of them aren't even good, but his commitment and his ability to put together a franchise is commendable. And then with the Creed, we had kind of a successful iteration of the Creed story with kind of a spin-off of Adonis, and Michael B. Jordan handles the character very well.
Oh, he's fantastic.
It's thrilling. It's it's a good franchise. It's pretty good, and it'll be interesting to see what Michael B. Jordan can do with this from the director's chair.
Yeah, I'll definitely say that's. I'm more curious to see how he does on that front. What's his visual style going to be? How does he approach directing himself? Because that can always be a challenge for some people. Is that you kind of know what you want in your head, and you'll do so many takes to get what you want that it becomes not worth it at some point. So I'll be curious to see how he does directing for sure. But I love Creed 1 and 2. They're both fantastic movies. Creed 2 is a little too much Rocky 4 for me, but
yeah, exactly.
But it's still a great movie, and Creed 1 fantastic. So
Creed 1 is genuinely good.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I was on kind of on the fence of like Creed should have been nominated for Best Picture that year.
I think it should have,
but it was not, which isn't that shocking. But definitely a fantastic movie. What do you think? What do you want Adonis, or who do you want Adonis to be fighting? And we just have him fight Rocky. Just have him fight Rocky at this point. Rocky with cancer.
Rocky with cancer. Yeah, I mean, there's that. You could do. God, you could do so much stuff.
Mr. T, yeah.
Mr. T has a kid.
Yep, we could do that.
We could do whoever the heck played Tommy Gunn in Rocky 5, which is a horrible movie, but there's this cocky young boxer named Tommy Gunn in Rocky 5. Tommy Morrison. We could have him come back. So,
let's see. I'm gonna Floyd Mayweather. Really just
it might be time for Floyd to get into the acting business. I don't know.
Break the fourth wall, and I wouldn't even name him a different character. He's just gonna be Floyd Money Mayweather.
He's just gonna play himself. It just makes sense. But I do like the idea of Michael B. Jordan, like Sylvester with the Rocky franchise, taking up the directorial responsibilities.
You might as well. I mean, couldn't hurt. I mean, the script is going to be good, so I have full faith in this movie, and I didn't know about it until now, so I'm excited to see it.
Yep. All right, so we have that, and I believe that is all the industry news we have this week. It's kind of been a slow week.
It has been dry. You're right.
So
what do you say, Sam? Do we move on to
I think we got to move on. We move on.
Has Max ever talked to you about the accident?
I don't know what you're talking about. How am I supposed to know anything if you don't tell me?
She's still here. Do you feel her?
Ooh, Rebecca. Here we go. Of course, off the a Hitchcock remake, or I suppose a remake of a Hitchcock. So, I guess, where do we start with this, Sam? Do you have you seen the original?
Okay, this takes a little bit of explanation, but no, I have not seen the original, which is kind of funny because up until this point, I had felt like, I obviously haven't seen all of Hitchcock. He has like 50 plus directing credits, but I I feel like I had my bases covered in Hitchcock.
You've seen more than I have.
Yeah. I mean, I like Hitchcock a lot. I think he's great. So, I was kind of disappointed in myself that I hadn't gotten around to the original Rebecca yet. Because it's kind of long, and it's like, this is kind of a love story. At least that's how I always interpreted it.
Sure.
So it was never really high priority for me. But now I feel like I have to go back and revisit it.
Well, there you go.
Yes.
So
I noticed that you watched the original Rebecca this week as well.
I did. I felt I owed it to Alfred Hitchcock. So I did go to my college library. I rented Rebecca from 1940.
Wow.
And I watched it. I sat down and watched it. And I'll get into that later, but I guess from here, so I'll talk about what I thought about the two compared a little bit, but we're here to talk about Rebecca from 2020, starring Mr. Hammer and Miss James. So
Mr. Hammer.
That's MC, by the way, not Arnie.
That is his name. That is his name.
Well, I mostly want to talk about the remake because that's what we're here to talk about. It looked like you liked it quite a bit, so I guess let's hear your thoughts first, just generally, and then we'll go to me.
Yeah, first I should mention that this movie, for whatever reason, is getting absolutely torn apart by the Letterboxd community.
It is, and I'll explain why later.
They're just brutalizing this poor film, which I thought was unoffensive in terms of, what it did. I don't think there's anything particularly like, oh my God, this movie is so terrible. And the hate I'm kind of detecting is more that someone would have the nerve to remake this Hitchcock classic.
That's exactly what it is.
Right. And for me, who has not seen the original, I don't understand. Before this movie came out, I didn't hear a word about how amazing the original Rebecca is. Like, that's not a movie anyone talks about when we're talking about classic cinema. I mean, all of a sudden these people are like great Rebecca defenders and like, no, it's a brilliant piece of cinema. You can't remake this,
Rebecca, the original, is interesting because it's not even like top 5 talked about Hitchcock either. It's not that it's just not talked about. Like, people that are Hitchcock lovers don't even really mention it. You got like North by Northwest, Psycho, Vertigo, The Birds, To Catch a Thief, Rope, but no one's like Rebecca. So yes, I found that interesting too. Like, going in the movie, I'm like, is this bad? And then watching the movie, I'm like, no, but it's not bad.
Yeah.
And I have a little different opinion than you just because I saw the original, but
yes,
it's not a bad movie.
No.
Which was interesting. What'd you think about Lily James and Armie Hammer?
I thought Lily James is good. I don't think I've seen her in anything. Oh, I guess she was in Baby Driver and Darkest Hour. She was good in both of those two, I remember. But I saw her in that terrible Beatles movie from last year, Yesterday.
Oh.
And that's not a good indicator of her abilities, because she's actually pretty good in this in Rebecca. I think she plays the part pretty well. But I think Armie Hammer is, some are critiquing his performance as a little stiff, maybe. But I thought he did all around a pretty good job. It's not a very demanding role in terms of range. He just kind of has to act serious.
I will say that his performance is pretty true to the original performance as well, though.
And that's Laurence Olivier's, right?
Yes,
that's his role.
It's not. it isn't much different, is all I'll say. I think they're both good, and I think they play a kind of a mysterious, broken dude pretty well. So it's not like I didn't understand the outcry against Hammer either. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So there's that. And then getting into, I guess, with the cast, we had some interesting cast members who I hadn't really heard of before, but I thought did a pretty good job. I thought Mrs. Danvers, Kristen Scott Thomas, I thought she was pretty good.
Yep.
She really had this demeanor to her that fit the role very well. She was mysterious and icy and evil. You can kind of see it, you know. And then you know, there were a few others, you know, Tom Goodman Hill as Frank did a good job, pretty minor role, but played that very well. I don't understand this this hatred. I really don't. So then with that, then we should probably get into like the story itself. So you've seen the original. How faithful is this new adaptation to the original then?
It sticks to it for the most part. There are odd things that are switched. No spoilers or anything, but in this one, her mom and dad died of a disease. In the first one, her father commits suicide. So it's things like that don't affect the plot in any way that were changed. That seems odd to me, which does impact my thoughts of it. I think that it doesn't need to be changed, so I don't know why you would change it, because there's no artistic decision going into it. You're just changing the dialogue a little bit for no particular reason, none that I could tell at least. But like the general plot line is 75% consistent. There are even a few major plot points that don't happen. Again, this isn't spoilers, but there's a time where the new Mrs. De Winter and Mrs. Danvers are friends for a little bit. That doesn't happen in the original. I think that's a relatively large plot point in this one.
Sure.
That being said, there's other plot points in this remake that don't happen in the original that I do favor the remake. So that might just be hindsight. I don't know. Maybe like the writers are like, well, yes, this plot point works, but let's just alter it a little bit because of time.
Okay.
So I actually did appreciate it for that reason. But yeah, no, it sticks to it quite well. It's some of the small things where it's head scratching, because I think why did you change that? Not that it bugged me or anything. It's just, why did you? So
do you think
it's faithful? So
do you think then that, you said 75%, do you think that 25% that was changed, do you think that's just an attempt on the director's part to kind of differentiate between the two, at least try to make it seem like, oh, this adaptation was necessary? There were revisions that make the story better, that we can flush out better here, or
yeah, yes, there are some decisions in it that I am like, yes, I understand what you're doing, and yes, that makes sense. Like I appreciate that. I can think of a few off the top of my head. Again, this isn't really spoilers because it's very early on. Mrs. Danvers shows the new Mrs. De Winter the portrait of the woman in the red dress, right? Almost immediately when she gets to the house, or to the house, right? And in the original Rebecca, it isn't until quite a bit into the movie where she finds or Mrs. Danvers shows her the portrait of the woman in the red dress. So I think, and obviously if you've seen the movies, then you would understand what I'm talking about, how it does change the story and how it does make it better. So
Right.
yes, I think there are artistic decisions in this that warrant a remake. So yeah, I guess which you need. Otherwise, just go watch the original. If you're gonna make a shot for shot, then don't remake it because that doesn't make sense.
Right.
But if you are going to just spin it a little bit, make some artistic decisions, then yes. And that seems kind of contradictory to what I said, like why change some things. But the things that I'm saying why change were like small tidbits of dialogue that don't provide any artistic decisions to change. So I was just confused about that. But like if you're making a conscious decision to change something because you think it'll make it better, then I'm all for it. Because otherwise, why remake something like that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I would agree because obviously we want rationale to go ahead and make a movie that apparently everyone just suddenly cares about, remake a movie that everyone cares about all of a sudden. So I came across, this is worth mentioning. I came across Letterboxd did an interview with Ben Wheatley, the director of this new adaptation. And they kind of ask him about what were your reasons for going ahead and remaking this movie that is very important? And he says, for example, this is a good question. Can you tell us how you overcame any concerns in adapting a famous novel that already has a very famous adaptation? How did you want to make a 1930s story relevant to modern audiences? And Wheatley says, quote, when you go back to the novel and look at how it works, you see it's a very modern book. Daphne du Maurier, the author, is doing stuff that people are still picking up the pieces of now. It's almost like the Rosetta Stone of thrillers. It tells you everything on how to put a thriller together. The genre jumping and the Russian doll nature of the structure is so delicious. When you look at the characters in the book, they're still popping up in other stuff. There's Mrs. Danvers in all sorts of movies. So I guess his argument is kind of like this movie needs to be, or this story needs to be told and retold, because it's so essential as a psychological thriller, which I can understand. A lot of people feel the same way about like Shakespeare's plays.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm completely on board with you there because I think the story of the book and both screenplays of these two movies are absolutely phenomenal. Like watching and obviously I knew what to expect in this remake because I had seen the original, but like watching the original and the remake is like you're trying to figure out the entire time what is going on, and when it is revealed, it's fantastic because it is shocking and like it completely flips it on its head. And then I didn't watch the original again, obviously, but like knowing what's going to happen and then watching it kind of again by watching the 2020 version is like it changes the whole thing and you watch it differently because you know what happens. So it's just interesting, especially can we get into spoilers?
Yeah, let's get into spoilers.
Okay, go see Rebecca. It's definitely worth it. But after knowing that Mr. De Winter, after knowing that Maxim kills his wife, while watching that a second time, kind of flips it, and it makes it that much better, honestly.
Really? Okay.
Because then you're watching like, the whole time he's getting upset with Mrs. De Winter, his new Mrs. De Winter, with her doing things like putting on the red dress or a whole number of things, because it reminds him of her, and we think the whole time that he misses her, but now we know that it's because he killed her and hated her. So it's just interesting to, it's kind of the same reactions, even though you think it's for a completely different reason. So it's interesting watching it in that respect for sure.
It's also kind of the I guess specifically with the scene with the red dress where she comes down and makes this grand, like, you know, revelation of her dress that she's been working on. And the way he reacts, it's not just with like regret, like, oh my God, I hated her so much, this reminds me of her. It's also like the guilt of having killed someone.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, you can kind of see that. You can kind of see it in his reaction, like, I don't want to remember that.
Yeah,
I
for
just
sure.
move on from that. And then the whole sequence where she says to kind of his extended family, like, I want to reincarnate, or I guess I want to restart the ball, the yearly ball. And he said, "What? Wait, no, wait. This is not something we discussed." You know, that whole thing. Like everything really reminds him of Rebecca and what she did to him. So yeah, that worked really well. And you know, just to talk about the whole structure of the ending, and like you said, how it kind of flips expectations on its head. That is like classic Hitchcock, right? You see that with Vertigo. You know,
for sure.
The entire time you assume there's
Psycho as
something
well.
supernatural going on, and then it just turns out to be essentially all the other characters gaslighting a single character. So
And I do want to ask you, how did the reveal of Mrs. De Winter and Maxim De Winter in that boathouse work for you? How did that interaction where Maxim tells Mrs. De Winter that he did kill his wife?
I thought it worked. I thought it worked really well.
Okay.
Anyone who has listened to this podcast before knows that I am not good at predicting things in movies, like at all. So I was pretty shocked. I had, like I mentioned before, I had an inkling in the back of my head, like something here is not there. This is not going to be a supernatural story.
Okay.
You know, because Hitchcock didn't like to make supernatural movies.
Nope, he never did.
He liked to give the appearance of supernatural activity when really it's human evil behind it all. So my thought initially throughout it was the entire house is gaslighting our main character. And gaslighting is a term that means, like, you know, acting like things that a character is perceiving are not real. So you know, and I guess Mrs. Danvers engages in this a lot when she talks to Lily James, kind of coaxes her into suicide almost. Which I wanted to mention too before, because we weren't in spoiler territory, but I think you said the original where her father kills himself is probably works better, because then there's that whole callback later in the plot where she's about to where she's thinking about suicide.
For sure.
So I think that would work better, I suppose.
I want to mention, I think the usage of the word Rebecca, you know, because obviously Rebecca's not, I mean, she's not even really a character, obviously. She's never on screen, at least. I think, and then also having Mrs. De Winter not have a first name, or that we know of, I should say. I think that is really smart. And, you know, that's not really a tribute to this movie, but it's a tribute to the story, which is the plot. So not having her have a name is genius, because it feeds into the fact that she is in Rebecca's shadow. I mean, it says that in the description, but that is really clever, and I'm at least glad they stuck with that, because that would have been embarrassing if they had given Mrs. De Winter, the new Mrs. De Winter, a name.
Yes, exactly. And like you know, Mrs. Van Hopper, her former boss, saying to her towards the beginning when they're about to elope, like he's just a bachelor and he's grieving and he just wants someone to fill in that gap
Sure.
in his
Yeah.
life. You know, you're just going to become another Rebecca,
Yep.
essentially. That whole
Absolutely.
thing. So that plays really well. And going back to the thing that you mentioned about watching Max De Winter during watching Max knowing that he murdered his wife, particularly in the beginning with that whole sequence of them going on dates and passing notes while they're in France. That just gives it a whole new layer of intrigue, right?
For sure. And, you know, I'll add that that's another thing that I liked better about the remake is that in the original, there is none of that. After, you know, Maxim and, well, she wasn't even Mrs. De Winter at the time, but doesn't have a name. So Mrs. De Winter, I'll just call her. In the original, they meet, and about 2 days later, or like 2 scenes later, they get married. So we don't get to develop their relationship like we did in this one. So I like that quite a bit better too, actually.
Yep. And I think their whole relationship throughout actually plays really well because there's kind of this like give and take. There's this tension that gets pulled and then it gets resolved and then it gets pulled again. When he yells at her for breaking the little statuette,
Sure.
and then, you know, he apologizes later, you know, that to me is just it worked really well for establishing their relationship as kind of realistic.
And the same
like any other relationship.
The same goes for when Rebecca's cousin came to the Mannerly and Army Hammer's Maxim De Winter thought she was having an affair for a little bit. That
Right.
Same thing. Kind of, he's angry at her for a little bit, but then eventually forgives her because he knows he was wrong, and you know. And then ultimately, in the end, when she sticks with him, and you know, the relationship kind of goes full circle. So that's again well played out, and that's an attribute to the director, honestly, that he was able to capture that. Because I will say, look, the first one doesn't necessarily do that as well, or at least he did it as well as Hitchcock did, which is impressive. So,
Yep. Yeah, I would agree. The other thing I wanted to talk about was that whole scene. I guess you alluded to it towards the end, where we have kind of like a courtroom kind of situation, and this is specifically relating to their relationship, but Mrs. De Winter is kind of saying to Maxim, like, you know, they can't prove anything, just deny, that whole thing. And she's willing to help him get away with murder.
Yeah.
You know, that's that, well, first of all, that's like an indicator that she does truly love him.
Yeah.
So that works well for their relationship, but also, and for us believing their relationship, you know. But also that kind of reminded me of another Hitchcock film called Dial M for Murder. Very similar dynamic. It's with Grace Kelly, and essentially it involves a spouse helping another spouse get away with murder. It's a very Hitchcockian topic.
Yeah, so just a lot of, I mean, this is still very Hitchcock, is what you're saying.
Yes.
In some senses, for sure. And, you know, I appreciate that. I like that Ben Wheatley, you know, he definitely took his own approach to it, but that he still stayed true to it in a lot of ways. So, you know, I appreciate that. That's good to see. I will say though, the ending is pretty much exponentially better in the original. The ending was the point where I was like, oh, this was done so much better in the original. Which that's one of the things where they took a different artistic decision and it just did not work for me. So good, bad, or otherwise, I mean, it's definitely subjective, but I think it serves better the way that Hitchcock did it, which is unfortunate because I was really enjoying it and was going to give it a very high grade, and now it's just a good grade or a good rating, if that makes sense. It especially it being at the end as well. You know, you want to go out on a high instead of a not a low, but
yeah.
That was disappointing, but not the worst. It wasn't bad by any means. Just I thought the original did it better.
Yeah, it was. The ending was a little abrupt. All of a sudden, you look and the house is burning down, literally.
It is quick.
So it just kind of happens all of a sudden. So there's that. But I mean, overall, they were trying to stay faithful to the story. I understand. The ending does feel slightly rushed, in my opinion, but it's not irredeemable. Certainly, certainly doesn't warrant the hate that it's getting from some Letterboxd people.
Yeah. Let's talk about the reception a little bit. Do you think that this is 100% getting hate because it's a Hitchcock movie? Do you think it's getting hate because of how the movie is actually structured? Do you think it's getting hate because it does change a little bit of the story? Like, well, I mean, it's not like this is. I mean, Hitchcock adapted it too. I mean, you could argue that Ben Wheatley is not adapting a movie; he's adapting a book.
Right.
So, I mean, why do you think it's getting this amount of negative reception? And you know, it's not just Letterboxd. I mean, it's sitting at 45% on Rotten Tomatoes as well, like 46 on Metacritic. I don't think it's this bad.
Yeah. I mean, it's I haven't really so from Letterboxd, we like Letterboxd because the opinions on there are from people like us who are not paid to write. Obviously we're paid millions a year for this podcast, but
yes, yeah,
we're not paid to write our reviews, you know, and so we kind of like that. But my sense is from Letterboxd that these people aren't really critiquing the structure of the movie itself or the plot. It's like you said, just the fact that it's a remake of a well-loved Hitchcock classic. But then I haven't read too many professional reviews of Rebecca, but we haven't really, even then, I've read one from the New Yorker, and this one doesn't really critique the movie itself either. It's just kind of giving reasons why the first is so perfect and it shouldn't be touched, you know.
So is it just because it's Hitchcock?
It must be.
Or is it Hitchcock, or is it the actual movie? Like, people are like, I like that movie, don't change it. Or is it because Hitchcock is the greatest, don't change it because of him? I think it's the latter. I think it's the Hitchcock.
Okay.
Which is really unfortunate because this is not a poorly made movie, in my opinion, at least.
No, it's not. They kind of mentioned this in the Letterboxd article that where they interviewed Wheatley. Basically Wheatley said something to the effect of I'm kind of, with this movie, we're kind of banking on the idea that a lot of the Netflix audience has not seen the original Rebecca, and so it'll be fresh to them, and the twist will work, the plot will, be thrilling for them. So I think if you went into this without knowing anything about the original Rebecca, I would assume you would have the reaction like me, or even there might be some people who don't know much about the original Rebecca but do know enough about Hitchcock himself. I know you mentioned before that this isn't really a particularly well-known Hitchcock film even. So maybe just the respect for Hitchcock himself, like you're saying, is enough to make people hate on this. But I'm not sure. It's kind of bizarre.
Yeah. Well, either way, I don't 100% agree with it. I don't 100% disagree with it, but I definitely don't think it should be as received as poorly as it is. But I guess
this is indicative largely of a larger problem with remakes. Is people have trouble critiquing the movie on its own merits instead of comparing it to the original.
Which I'm even doing. I understand that, but
yeah, of course. I mean, it's impossible not to put your own bias aside. But
I just think that when you look at this as a movie by itself, it's better than what people are giving it credit for. So
right, exactly.
Which I mean that's gonna happen. So nothing we can do about it. But do you want to hit some closing thoughts before we hit star ratings?
Yeah, I think Rebecca is, as we discussed, a solid film. I enjoyed it pretty thoroughly. I watched it kind of on kind of a cold day. It's just like a good old fashioned British high society drama psychological thriller film. It's a nice movie to watch on a kind of comfort food in an odd way. So I thoroughly enjoyed Rebecca. Do you have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I guess I'll just say I thought it looked fantastic. The camera work was good. I mean, I thought the costume designing was awesome.
Yeah, it actually was.
Everything, it was pretty tight in the directorial standpoint, and I thought it was well acted. I thought everything was good. Nothing like super stood out to me as very fantastic, but I thought it was all good to very solid. So, not much to complain about really. But Sam, let's hit some star ratings.
Okay.
I'll go first. I'm gonna give it a 3. I think just the ending brings it down for me just a little bit. It's 3 stars. Still recommend. Still a good movie. I'd say go watch Rebecca and watch the original too. Watch the Hitchcock and then compare them.
Sure. For mine, I'll give it 3.5 stars out of 5. It's a lower 3.5 stars. It's kind of on the bottom end of that 70%, but I thought the plot worked really well. I thought the characters were well developed. It's directorially tight, as we discussed. So yeah, but I will say that with the caveat of, had I seen the original, I would probably side more with you, Will. It would probably be closer to a 3, just because I know about Hitchcock's abilities and how impressive of a director he is, and I can only imagine what he would be able to do with this. So I guess for me, having not seen Rebecca, I'll give it I'll give this remake a 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah, and we should say this. I mean, if you just read me the description and said like who directed this movie, I would say Hitchcock instantly. You'd be like, Hitchcock, right? So
yeah, exactly.
This is such a tailor-made Hitchcock story that I mean he obviously kills it. But Sam, I'm gonna give you the honors. I want you to tease next week's episode before we hit some recommendations. So keep that in mind.
Next week's episode. For those of you who, pay attention to the world, next weekend is Halloween. So we thought it would be fun to do like kind of a Halloween special. And we're gonna talk about some spooky, I guess it doesn't have to be specifically horror, but just like good movies to watch around Halloween. They don't have to take place during Halloween, but we're just going to talk about our favorites and just kind of have a free form discussion. It should be a good time. So tune in then. And I'm excited. Our first kind of like special episode,
Yeah, I'm excited for this. I think, are we just going to do like, just top 5 and just kind of go back and forth, or just something like that?
Yeah. I mean, if someone wanted to email in some movies they want us to watch or discuss or whatever, that would be cool. We'd love to get some audience interaction during Halloween because, you know, Halloween is an excellent time to watch movies because it's the ultimate intersection of atmosphere, like in the real life, and atmosphere within film. Like if you're watching a scary movie on Halloween, you feel it, you know. More so than Christmas, I would argue, you know. So yeah.
There we go. Yeah. Actually, here we go. Good Halloween movies or Christmas movies, Sam?
Halloween.
I would agree. There's not many.
Honestly, there are not a lot of good Christmas movies.
There are only a few. And then
I mean, we will get to this in December, but there are not many good Christmas movies.
Agreed.
So I think we're on the same page about this.
We'll get there. But let's hit some weekly recommendations. I'll start us off here. You know, out on Disney Plus, you know, we're not huge fans of Disney, but Disney does own Star Wars, and I'm a huge fan of Star Wars. So starting this Friday, October 30th, season 2 of The Mandalorian comes out, and catch up on season 1 right now. I'm doing it, and starts.
You're just now getting around to this, Will? How could you?
Right? I kind of, so it came out last year, and I just postponed it for so long, and I'm like, season 2 is coming out. I have to watch this. Let's just get it. And I'm through 6 out of the 8 episodes, and it's just fantastic. You know, the production quality is very high. I mean, they obviously put a ton of effort into this. It's not just thrown together and been like, hey, it's Star Wars, here you go. It's well thought out. It's well made. It's well crafted. I can't wait for season 2. It comes out this Friday, and then there'll be 1 episode a week for a couple months. So The Mandalorian out on Disney Plus. Get to it because it's coming. This is the way.
This is the way. This is the way.
Have you seen The Mandalorian?
I have not.
Okay.
I'm not. Okay, you know, my schedule. I've been getting bombarded with TV show recommendations.
Oh
and
my
I'm like,
gosh.
I don't have time for a TV show.
So constant. I know. Tell me about it.
It's like I can't do that right now.
When
you know,
people tell me
I prefer movies to begin with, you know.
I know. I prefer movies, and then someone says watch a 6-season 20 episode thing. I'm like, no, I how many hours is that?
I know.
I don't even want to think how much time I would invest in that.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I completely agree with you. But what's your recommendation for the week?
My recommendation, this is kind of cool. I've recommended a couple of new albums, kind of from my favorite artists recently. Well, by recently I mean on this show, but this week there was a new Springsteen album that came out. It's a rocker kind of album with the full E Street Band, because earlier Bruce had been doing kind of solo, more acoustic kind of stuff, but now this is like a full rock band kind of album. Springsteen at 71 is still rocking. His voice sounds great on this record. And something interesting he did with this one is there's I think 3 songs on there that are from way earlier in his career that he wrote probably before his first album, even in the early 70s. So on this album, he decided to re-record 3 of those songs.
That is cool.
And play that, and they bang. They're
Nice.
good rock music. So if you like Springsteen or anything, you know, classic rock genre, check out Letter to You by Bruce Springsteen. There's also an accompanying documentary film that they made to come out in conjunction with the album. So I still need to watch that, but that should be interesting because they recorded this album in the period of like 5 days.
There you go.
So it's very exciting stuff.
Are you going to buy this on? Are you going to buy it on vinyl? Or not sure yet?
I don't know. It needs more listens. It needs more listens.
All right, you know, because
vinyl's an investment. Vinyl
is an investment. I get that. I definitely get that. So, what's the album called again?
Album's called Letter to You.
Letter to
Bruce
You.
Springsteen.
There you go. Check that out. Check out The Mandalorian. But Sam, until further notice, where can I find you at?
Well, I mean, you can check us out at on letterboxd.com/sjdierberger. And where can I find you?
You can find me at Will Spalding, and you can find us, as always, in Mannerly, but it's burned down right now, so we're trying to find it out. But
It's cold up here.
yeah, it's cold. So if you're not in England, which if you aren't, what are you doing? But you can always find us at anchor.fm/thosefilmnerds, where all of our episodes can be listened to, or anywhere where podcasts are found, plus YouTube. And of course, you can find us on Those Film Nerds on Instagram and at thosefilmnerds@gmail.com. Email in anything movie related, and especially send in your Halloween lists or your favorite Halloween movies, and we'll break that on down next week. So watch some Halloween movies, get prepared. Should be a good fun episode next week, I think. Should be fun.
Yeah.
But until next time, Sam.
Keep watching movies, everyone. Have a great week.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Ever thought about making a podcast? Well, Anchor is the easiest and simplest way to do so. Let me explain. For starters, it's free. There's also creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone, laptop, or computer. Anchor will also distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on multiple platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcasts, and much, much more. You can also make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need in a podcast in one place. So give it a try.